After 2 years of police investigations, months of trials, and 2 days of jury deliberations, a court in Kingston got it right. First-degree murder convictions for Mohammed Shafia, his polygamous wife, Tuba Mohammed Yahya, and their demon son, Hamid Mohammed Shafia. The three were motivated by a medieval belief that women are the personal property of men, to be owned by men and disposed of by men. Mohammed and his son, Hamid Mohammed, decided that the three beautiful girls in their family, Muhammad's daughters, Hamid Mohammed's sisters, needed to be killed, needed to be drowned like kittens in a barrel, because they didn't want to live like animals in a cage, which is the norm for women in Islamic fascist states like Saudi Arabia or the Afghan culture from which the Shafias hail. Zainab Shafia, Sahar Shafia, and Gidi Shafia, all teenagers, just 19, 17, and 13 years old respectively, were murdered. And Tuba Mohammed, one of Mohammed's polygamous wives, went along with it too. They also murdered one of the other polygamous wives as well. It was a quadruple homicide. To put that in context, Paul Bernardo, one of Canada's most notorious serial killers, was convicted of only 3 murders. The Shafias killed 4 of their own family for the crime of wanting to be Canadian girls, not wanting to live like caged animals, like many women back in Afghanistan must do. So Mohammed Shafia, Hamid Mohammed Shafia, and Tuba Mohammed Shafia put the girls in a van, along with the first wife, and pushed it into a canal. Tuba Mohammed's rival polygamous wife, Rana, was killed that day too. Here's footage of the murder scene. Take a look at that. Judge Robert Moranger got it right. He said, quote, "It is difficult to conceive of a more heinous, more despicable, and more honorless crime," unquote. That's true. It's difficult, but it's not impossible to conceive of it, because there have been a dozen or more such honor murders in Canada in recent years, and there are literally thousands of these killings each year, predominantly in countries that are dominated by medieval fascist interpretations of Islam. Later in the show today, we'll interview a professor who studies honor killings both in Canada and around the world to find out just how widespread this war on Muslim women has become. And that's what it is, a war on women, but not a war on all women. These are not Amish girls being drowned in a barrel. They're not Australian girls or girls from Honduras. What they have in common in more than 90% of the cases is that they're girls living under the thumb of brutal extremist Muslim men, bullies. It's the logical extension of women being forced to wear burqas. Surveys from Paris, France show that more than 70% of women who wear a Muslim veil say they do so out of fear of men in their lives, either their husbands and fathers or Muslim imams or even strangers in the street. Fear of violence. Forcing women to cover their face is part of the same toxic culture that says young women in Canada must live like young women in medieval Arabia did. And if you subscribe to that culture, that code of living, then you can understand the brutal logic that Shafia's carried out. If men own women and women don't obey the men, then women can kill the women. Men can kill the women. And 70% of women who wear a burqa do so out of fear. You can imagine the fear felt by the 4 murdered women in Kingston. But that's the grotesque part here. While the court in Kingston finally got it right in the end, the Canadian government failed these 4 murdered women a half-dozen times beforehand. The girls called the authorities. They were so worried they ran away from home. They told teachers about the threats of violence they faced from their father and brother. One fled to a battered women's shelter. They talked to the cops. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. These girls, Gidi was just 13 years old, but she found the courage to ask for help to protect herself and her sisters from the bullies in her life. These girls did exactly what they were supposed to do. But every single time authorities saw they were Muslim, and then they backed down in the name of multiculturalism, in the name of cultural sensitivity, in the name of tolerance. In the name of tolerance, our tolerant society tolerated the intolerable. We tolerated the constant threats these girls lived under. Only now that they're dead have we roused ourselves to give a damn. If these girls were white, they would still be alive. Because if cops are called to a house on a domestic violence call, they won't go away saying, oh, that's just part of the Anglican culture or the Honduran culture. They would lay charges, but not against 3 murderers, each named Mohammed. Look, either we believe in the criminal code or we don't. Either we believe in nonviolence or we don't. Either we believe in the equality of men and women or we don't. Either we believe that everyone is protected by the law here and that no one is above the law because they're a Muslim man and no one is below the law because they're a Muslim woman, or we don't believe these things. We need to decide, is our Western liberal way of treating women superior to the medieval fascist way of treating women or not? And if we've decided that letting girls live is better than murdering them in some twisted notion of honor, then can we please live up to our beliefs before the girls are killed and not just afterwards? Can we please tell the cops and the social workers and the school workers and the media not to keep turning a blind eye to this epidemic of abuse in the name of tolerance? For it is the soft bigotry of low expectations that says, oh, they're Muslim, we can't hold them to account. It's precisely that liberal white bigotry that led to the deaths of these girls. This was a mass murder just as evil as anything done by Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. It's just as evil and 30% as large as the mass murder at the École Polytechnique in Montreal some 20-odd years ago. That last one, 13 women killed for being women, is being turned into a political moment, especially by the CBC. It was proof of the malignance of all men, they said. And the fact that the murderer, Marc Lepine, was actually born Gamil Garbi, the son of an Algerian Muslim immigrant who beat his wife. Well, that's been scrubbed from the official narrative. Every year, we're forced to confront the evil of the Montreal massacre. Good. Now, it's too politicized for my taste, but good. Let's never forget the face of evil. But literally within minutes of the verdict in this case, the Shafia case, the CBC, which treats the anniversary of the Montreal massacre as a holy day, as sacred as Christmas and Yom Kippur combined, was already trying to chip away at the moral strength of it. Look at this buffoon, Andrew Nichols, who was hosting the government's all-news channel on the CBC that day. Look at this.
Was there surprise that the verdict is now coming less than 48 hours after the jury began their deliberations? And are you a little bit surprised that less than 48 hours that this jury has come up with a verdict, given the fact that the judge said you have a number of different options, 15 hours, and some have expressed some surprise that it was just 15 hours of deliberations. Are you surprised that a verdict was reached so quickly in just 15 hours?
All right, Andrew, we get it. You think this judgment was rushed and too, what's the word? Too judgmental. Look, the overwhelming evidence, the recorded conversations of the murderers celebrating their crimes, it all surely needs some sort of cultural understanding, right? I mean, seriously, can you imagine Andrew Nichols saying that right after the conviction of Paul Bernardo? Casting doubt on the judgment. Even the Shafia's own lawyer had the courtesy or the taste or the common sense not to say that, but not the CBC. Was this too rushed? Did they rush to judgment? In fact, the CBC immediately went into spin mode for the murderers. They put a question up on their website. Do you agree with the Shafia verdict? Do you agree with it? Did you agree with it? Could you imagine, after the grotesque, wrenching trial of Bernardo, if the CBC would have polled its viewers, if they agreed with the verdict? How on earth could anyone not agree with it? Well, it's obvious. Because there's the special Muslim honor killing exemption that the CBC believes in, the multicultural exemption. You see, they're from Afghanistan exemption. Paul Bernardo didn't have that exemption. You see, the Shafias do, at least in the mind and the mouths of their CBC advocates. They looked around for anyone to whitewash what happened, to pretend it wasn't about a twisted medieval sense of Muslim extremism. Check out this from the CBC.
The term honor killing, that we use this term, that it's terrible that we use this term, and that if it had not been an immigrant family, if it had not been a so-called honor killing, which seems to grab the attention of the media.
Think about that. Does this verdict confirm that this was in fact an honor killing?
No, for me, the term is oxymoronic, and I wish people wouldn't use it. There is no such thing as honor in killing. And I think when we do that, especially in Canada, I'm not talking about the rest of the world, what we are doing is we're making something exotic and alien and something different, instead of the fact that these were Canadian women and children, and we should talk about it as a murder of women. And the term that we would prefer to have been used, and we hope people will use, is femicide, which is straightforward killing of women just because they're women and girls.
Because at a basic level, it really comes down to, I guess, violence against women, domestic abuse, and those are issues that really cross all cultural lines.
Exactly.
Cross all cultural lines. You see, this could have been anyone. You see, the CBC doesn't want this murder to be made into, what did she say? Something exotic and alien and different. They want us to believe that we're all like that. We're all like the Shafias. There's nothing special or evil or notable about Mohammed, Hamid Mohammed, and Tuba Mohammed. There's nothing there at all, just like John Smith and Richard Johnson. Nothing alien here, folks, nothing exotic. We're just all folks. The CBC succeeded in deracinating the Montreal Massacre and replacing the son of a Muslim fascist, Gamil Garbi, with his fake name, Marc Lépine. And they want to do that here too. They want to pretend that we're all capable of murdering our daughters because they don't want to wear burqas. Oh, that could be anyone. That's a very Canadian thing. That isn't exotic. It's in all of us. Look, it is not. It is not. There is a war against Muslim women. It's being perpetrated by Muslim men. Not all Muslim men, thank God. Most Muslims came to Canada to get the hell away from such fascist bullies. But some of the fascist bullies sneaked into our country too. And in the case of Mohammed Shafia, he brought his 2 polygamous wives with him. The jury and the judge in this case have decided to stop pussyfooting around. It's time the police and social workers in this country do too. And as for Andrew Nichols, the last apologist for honor killings in this country, he deserves nothing more than to be known as a white liberal who makes special excuses for the killing of brown women that he would never accept for the killing of white girls. That's called bigotry.